welcome to this panel, which, as Max already announced, is going to focus in on the potentials of the fashion industry being a driver for change. So in the next 40 minutes, we want to talk about how can the fashion industry itself perhaps be a trendsetter in driving social and economic change, but also how is it shifting in itself from being like the bad kid on the block, the polluter, to perhaps an inspiring circular industry. And I'm joined by three fantastic guests to talk about this topic, and I'd like to introduce them to you now. First off, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Ina Budde, who is the co-founder and CEO of Circular Fashion. Circular Fashion provides software and services for circular design and closed-loop recycling systems. And she and her team really support fashion businesses in doing their best to create business models that are fit for a circular economy. And they're very good at doing this because based on their work, they have been receiving numerous awards, including the Global Change Award by H&M, the H&M Foundation, the German Federal Award for Eco-Design in 2017, and they've also joined the Accelerator Program for Fashion for Good, Plug and Play. Welcome to this discussion, Ina.
Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here.
And I'd also like to give a warm welcome to Lauren Butcher, who's part of the Redress circular fashion team. She's enthusiastic to be working on post-consumer textile waste topics on the ground in Hong Kong and increasing the reuse, resale, and recycling of clothes today. So Lauren's team is engaged with a wide range of stakeholders, including corporates, fashion brands, but also schools and charities, as well as individual consumers, to really drive awareness in the problem of textile waste and to push for more sustainable behaviors, not just on the personal level, but also on an industrial level. But that can include things like shopping secondhand, as well as easy access to these circular technologies and systems that we're talking about today. It's great to have you join the discussion. Thanks very much for being here with us, Lauren.
Really lovely to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm also giving a very warm welcome to Amber Slooten from the Fabricant. The Fabricant is, Amber Slooten works with 3D animation and digital fashion design.
Okay.
And her work is revolving around the question of how we today in this digital society curate our identity and the future. She's a co-founder and creative director at the Fabricant, which is a digital fashion house that creates clothing that is always digital, never physical. So she's looking at how to design and how to innovate unconstrained by the boundaries of the physical realm, creating 3D fashion narratives, endless possibilities in the digital world. Thanks so much for being here with us today, Amber.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
And last but not least, I'm welcoming Daniel Pinto to this panel, who has really extensive experience in the fashion industry. His work has been linked to sustainability in the fashion sector for a number of years, and he's the strategic director at Scoop, a Portuguese clothing pioneer, the incorporation of sustainability in its strategies. And Daniel, being responsible for the strategic framework of the company, it's really become a link between his customers and the company commitments in creating partnerships and collaborations for responsible production. Thank you very much for joining the discussion today as well, Daniel, and for all of you being part of the Berlin Fashion Summit. So I would like to jump straight into the topic of our debate, and I'd like to begin with you, Ina, as you have advised so many different clients, so many different organizations on circular systems. Do you think you are witnessing a fundamental change of how companies from different sectors are approaching this topic?
Absolutely. I think what we have a picture on the different stakeholder groups there, and I think we all observed such a big momentum in the last years. Just looking at also the commitments that fashion brands did, 12% of the global fashion market really has committed to become more circular. So I think that's such an exciting way to be in and to see the progress of all of them. And what we observe is that everyone now understood it's kind of a team play where we need all the different perspectives on the table of the fabric producers, designers, fashion brands, the users, as well as sorters and recyclers. Like we really need to align all of them and kind of play this game together to really make a change happen. And I think that's such an exciting way that people now understood that, and that they also that we're more in a way of like creating win-win situations of like designing something in a way that is really beneficial for a recycler, and the other way around, like really sharing also requirements from recycling to kind of build the products in a better way. So I think these interconnections is something that we observe that come more and more into the front, and that is really good to see, and I think a very important milestone on this journey.
That is a very encouraging perspective. Let me just ask one follow-up question. Do you see a difference in the pace of adoption of companies in the fashion industry and in other industries currently?
I mean, I would say fashion is definitely something that touches us all. I mean, we're all wearing fashion. I think that's one crucial factor of it. I mean, we observed it in like the cosmetic industry or the food industry before, like things that are really connected to our bodies is like something where we suddenly like understand like what do we actually wear for clothing? What do we, how we are connected? And of course, this makes us think like, how was it produced and who actually was involved in the whole process? So I think that's definitely something where people got more and more engaged in that. And also where I think designers now realize that kind of designing products goes far beyond just the aesthetics and like choosing a color or choosing some shape. I think it's to design the real beauty. It's so much more to really look into what the use phase of a product could look like, and to really understand that you have an influence on that. Designing something for longevity and recyclability, you can really kind of take an action of what this product might become in the future as well. So I think that's the thinking that now really got up, and like also the whole system design perspective, not just designing a product, but designing the product made fit to a system, and designing the product or the system around the product as well. So I think these kind of elements are definitely there. And very needed.
Yes, that is all very encouraging to hear. So thank you for sharing those insights, and we'll get back to dig a little bit deeper on the experiences that you've had in the recent years. But I'd like to pass it over to you next, Lauren, and for you perhaps to talk us a little bit about, obviously, also your work at Redress. I feel like you must have feel like you hit gold. Like people have been in this business for longer and have put their emphasis on things like recycling or redress, especially with the whole uptake of that from also larger players in the last couple of years. So do you feel you've just been at the right point in time and now your time has finally come, so to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that you say that hit gold, and because the thing that really stuck out to me that Ina said was just the momentum that's built up in the last couple of years. So I joined Redress 3 years ago, and at that time in Hong Kong, at least, it was all about plastic. All of the organizations talking about plastic waste were getting all of the media, they were getting all of the billboards, all of the corporates were involved. And we used to say, why isn't fashion as sexy as plastic waste? No, and then in the last 2 years, we've just seen this explosion of interest from consumers, from media, from corporates, from fashion brands, who are just so much more aware of the issue and so much more motivated to do something.
Yeah, that is excellent to hear. And I'm wondering how you are going about your work. As you said, finally now there's a bit more attention on this side of the spectrum and on this side of the industry, let's say. But I'm sure it's taking a lot of also advocacy and campaigning. And if you can maybe share some of the experiences that you've had along the way to bring this attention.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I'll tell you a little bit more kind of about who Redress is and what we do, just for some background. So we're an environmental charity. We were founded about 12 years ago in Hong Kong. But we're very unique as an environmental charity, at least in Asia, because our core mission is to fight waste in the fashion industry. So in Hong Kong, it's about 170 tons of clothing going to landfill every day. It's about 1.2 million T-shirts going to landfill every day. But when Redress started, we focused very much on designers. So what Redress is most well known for is something called the Redress Design Award, which is actually the world's largest sustainable fashion design competition. That's all about empowering designers on the design side to design for circularity, to design for low waste, and that kind of thing. But the program that I work for, the Circular Fashion Program, is very new. So it started 3 years ago, actually when I joined, with the very miraculous fortune of funding. And kind of a build-up in momentum that enabled us to start that program, which looks at building systems to reduce waste in Hong Kong by increasing the resale, reuse, and recycling of waste locally. So part of that is that we've built a take-back program with retail brands. So we work with all of the brands in the Inditex portfolio. So that's Zara, Pull&Bear, Oysho, Massimo Dutti. Recently started work with Tommy Hilfiger and with a few other independent brands to help to collect post-consumer clothing, carefully sort it, and then redistribute it, mainly to a network of local charities here in Hong Kong. And our program really focuses on this local ecosystem, so not sort of selling waste to middlemen to send to overseas markets and the like. So that's come with a huge amount of learnings, actually, about what the opportunities are for reusing and recycling waste, but also the enormous challenges. And it has required a lot of, not necessarily campaigning, but collaboration, most certainly with retail brands who provide us access to consumers, as well as with corporates, again, and schools who provide us with this sort of access to the people that we want to be speaking to. And then on the more sort of technical side, logistics companies, waste recyclers, charities, these kinds of players who are really important in creating that ecosystem, as Ina said as well.
Fantastic. I would like to go back to some of those aspects, especially educational aspect, a little bit later on in the conversation. Daniel, you've also witnessed this shift from the DIY being a niche thing to the mainstream fashion industry. What do you perceive as being the key drivers for change at the present?
Well, so first of all, thank you very much for the invitation, and sorry for the technical problems here with the delay. I would also like to say that it is a big honor. It is a big honor to be on this panel, especially a panel full with women, as we know in our world, and especially where I come from. Back in the industry, we still don't see that much nowadays. So, thank you very much, you all. It's a big pleasure for me as a man to be here in the middle of so many women. Then back to your question. I would keep it short and say that actually the biggest drive for change would be start by educating people, and to have a better education, I think we really need to reduce the gap in between fashion brands and the industry. The big groups need to work much closely with the industry to avoid these problems Lauren was mentioning, logistics, programs, systems. How are we going to do it? It's not a one-side show. If we really want fashion to be a drive for change, then we all need to be thinkers, producers, designers, brands, logistics companies. We all need to be together in this, and for that we do need to reduce very much the gap existing between the industry and the brands.
Yes, absolutely. And what the key factors in that could be, or for how example Ina is going about that in her work. Let's get to that in a minute. But I'd like to bring you into the conversation. I kind of feel like with the Fabricant, you are trying to be that change. And I'd like to learn if you have like a vision for how you would want for your company to affect the rest of the industry, or have a kind of a dynamic set forth by the kind of business models that you're putting out and the kind of ideas that you're putting out in terms of digital fashion, what kind of effects that you hope that's going to have on the industry.
Well,
yeah, sure.
Go on, go on. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
no, sorry. Yeah, no, I
Sorry,
think
sorry.
no, that's all good. I think like for us, we're trying to generate new revenue streams and new business models because, you know, in a way, working with digital clothes is a whole different system in which we don't even need to touch the physical product anymore, and it doesn't even need to be created in the first place. So we're trying to see how we can create new systems through which we can actually all earn. So the creators, but also the brands, and everybody could earn actually from digital only products that can then be traded and created and create value for everybody. So they will be on the blockchain, for instance. If you would have one item on the blockchain, you would forever have this this NFT code, and this code, you'd be able to trade that and wear that in all these different places in digital spaces, but soon as well on your physical body, because it's not far away where we all will wear something like glasses or lenses and see a digital layer on top of our physical reality. Right now, these things sound very futuristic, but actually it's all in the making already. So I think digital-only product is going to play a very important role in the future. We see it already right now within games and any other places, is people are spending massive amounts of money on digital goods. And it would just be so much better for the planet, if we just stop producing clothes as much as possible, only have the essential things that we should wear, which are more functional in our daily lives, and then within the virtual space we can express ourselves to the fullest of our abilities and push for creativity. So I think, for us it's actually rethinking the entire system, and we're rethinking a way that it can actually be a fairer system for the people that work in it, the people that are creating things, the designers, but also the planet and the people that are wearing it. So I think for us, that's the way we want to go about it. But I'm so happy to hear actually from this entire panel that there's so much change happening already in the industry, because I felt like, not a lot is changing, and especially, within these territories. And I think for me, it's really actually great to hear that companies like yourselves are actually doing so much about the actual waste that's happening, because it is horrific if you hear those numbers, and I'm very happy that there is something being done about that right now, while we on the other side are creating another system, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm guessing that the current pandemic has been such a catalyst to promote the kind of ideas that you're talking about, especially for those people to whom it might have been abstract before. Why would one want a digital fashion product only? Since we've all experienced putting on our Zoom makeup in the last year, I'm sure that has become a lot more tangible to many people out there.
Totally.
Daniel, you haven't practiced putting on your Zoom makeup? I can highly recommend it.
No, I didn't. But I would actually just like to add something that Amber touched. I think it's so real that we kind of don't need to buy anything new. Like the existing materials should be our focus. What is already done should be our focus, and how can we work on that? How can we not buy so much? Would be really something to think on.
Yeah. And you wanted to jump in earlier when I was asking also, what kind of effect do you hope your company is going to have on the rest of the industry? Do you want to answer that for Scoop, Daniel?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes, I felt like you wanted to jump in earlier when I asked what kind of effects do you hope your business is going to have on the rest of the industry? So the ideas that you're currently working on, how do you hope that is going to have an effect on others at Scoop?
Yeah, I just, from an industry point of view, I guess you get to see all the dirt that brands leave behind, and we really suffer from that if you care about it. It isn't just simply, you can't just say, oh, it's liability. It's bill it to us, It's not, if you really care about the environment and the mess you're leaving behind, you can't just do that. And we started looking at that. And definitely the focus for us and the impact we want to have right now is on one side trying to think and adapt to fit the new retailers and the likes of new business models like pre-order, that highly reduces consumption, for instance. And then just focus a lot on the existing materials, on redesigning, on upcycling. We've been doing upcycling for a lot of years, and we are very, very happy to say that we didn't reach 50% of our business yet based on upcycling, but we have all the new orders and new clients and new demands we have are purely or mainly based on upcycling and the use of existing materials, and also on pre-order and direct-to-consumer solutions. So avoiding all these transportation and logistics centers, let's say, and have a product direct from factory to client, redesigned, and possibly we can take it back, as Lauren was saying. We work also with Figure here at Scoop. And also the post-consumer solutions that are being created to give back the pieces and redesign or reinvent new materials with that don't even need to be fashion related. It's where we are positioning ourselves, let's say.
Tomorrow, we're going to zoom in on the topic of local ecosystems, communities, and economies. Do you feel, again, like the pandemic has been a catalyst also for your parts of the business, especially when it comes to localizing production or rethinking different kinds of production chains?
Yeah, totally. I think, well, locally, I can't say that because we export 100% of our business. What I can say is that and the pandemic highly helped us understanding and having the time to think what we want to do, where we want to be, and the player we want to be with our brands. We work with major brands around the world, and in our opinion, we just decided we had to try to push the change in our clients. You know, it's force our clients to change, or if you want to produce with me, either you do this as I want, plastic, you help us redesign the future, or you just don't work with us. And it's
I think that's a very good and strong sentiment. Yeah, the idea that you need to be bold and to push others also in your direction along your value chain if they've not moved yet. This is a sentiment that Lavinia from Armedangels brought forth in the panel that we had previously. And I want to bring a point that she made back to you, Ina, which is that she was saying that basically the glass ceiling is still top-level management in large industrial companies. And that is where the pain point is. Like, consumers are getting it, not all, but largely there's a shift in a lot of mindsets. A lot of small-scale actors are also seeing the way that this is heading, but really the glass ceiling is still at the management level at large industrial organizations. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit what would be lines of argumentations or also strategies to bring those to the table that you're also pursuing with circular fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy to go in depth on that. But I also want to mention like how exciting I find also like Amber's proposal of a vision. Shortly to touch on that, like to really concentrate and take into account virtualizing certain things to really kind of put on solutions on this desire for rapid fashion change, and then having more space to actually put more time and invest into like more meaningful products on the other hand that are like now made by humans and like really worn by humans and like really this interconnected element. I think that's really interesting. And but to your question on like the also argumentations, I think basically linear businesses will not exist in the future. That's just a fact. And I think people have to understand that like you can either change now and like be kind of a little bit still part of front runners, like, or being like taking it as an opportunity, or you will not have an existing business in the future, I would say. Like, and I think this like sounds more negative than it is, but like I think there is such a big like potential in the whole circular business atmosphere, all the business models for all the different stakeholders, and I think that that the tools and the possibilities to really unlock this are also there. Meanwhile, I think that there was a phase where, you know, it wasn't really actionable yet, or, you know, solutions were missing in terms of materials, circular design things were potentially limiting for some time, or certain recycling solutions aren't yet fully scaled. I mean, it's still the case. Not everything is scaled, but it's there. Like, we can definitely engage with them. We can definitely do lots of pilots, and many actionable solutions are out there. So I think it's more about really daring the step of, like, implementing things, not just talking, but really, like, walking the talk as well, and, like, doing the things. And I think if it comes to, like, how we also work with those companies, we always look at the different perspectives of, like, on the one hand, what Daniel also said about the education piece, and, like, really designing products from the very beginning to be circular, but also on the infrastructure piece that you, Lauren, mentioned about, like, implementing sorting solutions and recycling solutions. And I think in all of those parts are huge business potentials of, like, designing products more long lasting, and then unlocking this huge value that you created with a circular business model of renting, or also, like, our circularity system that really kind of enables products to be visible, and, like, bring product data into the full value chain, and let customers also access it, let sorters access it to kind of understand the value that a product has when it was designed for recycling in the very beginning. And so those tools are, like, on the way and partly in action already. Like, I think the panel before showed also about the closed loop pilot that we have currently on also implementing these intelligent sorting systems that are based on product IDs. So I think there is no excuse of, like, saying anymore, like, no, why are we designing for this? It's not really ending up where it needs to be. The infrastructures are there meanwhile, and companies can engage. And I think that's really important to understand also for high-level management and so on. Yeah.
Great, yeah. So I'm wondering, how can we make that more visible, or perhaps share some of these also to make them more accessible? That's kind of a point where we left off in the last panel too. How can we enable others, maybe also in countries that are not economically so well off, to benefit from some of these systems being created? And I was wondering, as you were speaking earlier, Lauren, and you also got a shout out in the chat. By the way, open invitation to anybody watching us to post a question or comments in the chat. We'll definitely be happy to involve those in the conversation. So please feel free to use the chat on the Vimeo platform where we're live streaming to leave questions and comments. So you already got a shout out, Lauren, for how amazing Redress is as an initiative. And I was wondering if there's something like, it's kind of like you created a blueprint also that others could learn from, to see how could they locally implement such initiatives. Is that something that you're engaged in, to share the models you've created and the experiences you've had?
In terms of, have we taken any steps to share those so far?
Yeah, well, what kind of infrastructures do you think we need for knowledge sharing, just to empower others to sort of jump on board with their initiatives?
I mean, I can share about something quite interesting that we've just embarked on in the last maybe 2 months, and that is we've organized 2 now, co-organized waste summits in Hong Kong, where we've brought together all of the key players. So local recycling facilities, upcycling designers, repairers, logistics companies, to sit together in one room and actually have real honest conversations about what we're actually doing, what services each of us provide, so that we're not doubling up on things, not in terms of reducing competition, but so that if somebody approaches Redress and says, you know, what are the options here, that I can actually tell them, well, these are the options. And I know the players who are in Hong Kong and are active, and I can direct you to the right place. So trying to understand more about what each other are doing, so that we can get a clearer picture of what the ecosystem actually looks like in Hong Kong. And that's been just extraordinarily interesting and really beneficial, and something that I would highly recommend that people in other jurisdictions consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, again, sort of brings us back to the opening point of how can the fashion industry also have an impact, or project its learnings on other industries. So bringing together all these different stakeholders around a topic like that is certainly one way to go about that. Where do you see other points, and I'm going to make this an open question to everyone, where do you see other points for the fashion industry? This is kind of a thesis I put out in the beginning statement, having been at the forefront of one of the industries that is busy ruining the planet through wastefulness and toxic waste, etc., now sort of being the pioneer in embracing change and implementing circular systems. Do you see that this is a potential, and where do you see possibilities for actors from the fashion industry also having their effect on players in other industries?
I can jump in for a little bit. I think like for me, what's most important is that the mindset shift from the brand or the industry changes from going into this secrecy in which it's always been like, I cannot share anything with you because you're my competition, and we are fighting against each other for a market, and we are trying to make a buck, and sort of the idea of always needing to keep everything secret, and then having this big reveal moment in the fashion show where you reveal what you've done, and then the buyer's going to buy it, and then it's this whole system which is set up for disaster, because you're always either buying too much or too little, or people won't buy it. And I think the whole system needs to sort of change. It's not just about creating better products, it's about the entire system, or the entire way that we interact with clothes, the entire way we look at garments, the seasonality, everything that has to do with buying new products needs to change. And I think I would say I'm quite skeptical, because at a lot of C-level positions right now, there's a lot of people who have been in the industry for a long time. And I think what needs to be proven is the fact that circularity, or this new way of working, is actually more profitable than the old way of working, because then the change is really going to happen. Because if there's no viable business model behind it, it's very hard to get everybody to be on board, because they think, yeah, but we can still earn money with this other way. So I think it's very important to propose like a new way of working in which we are actually going to create this new economy, but also stay away and share the resources from this new economy. So for us, that's really about being open source and decentralizing things, because in decentralized ways, you can actually do way more together and engage your community and do everything together in a sense, and grow together as well. Like for us, we share all of our resources with anybody that wants to, learn, and we do Twitch streams, all these things. And I'd love to see brands actually sharing their knowledge and sharing what they're learning with each other. Like, how amazing would that be? I mean, we've seen like this little collaboration, I think it was Gucci and Balenciaga, and that was like, whoa, they collaborated. And I was like, yeah, that's great, but like what is everybody actually sharing with each other? If we would do that, then we could really push the industry forward. And sharing together, I think, is the answer of actually changing the industry at large. So I really hope we will do that.
I think those are incredibly strong points that you just made, Amber, and I really want to thank you for bringing those terms into the debate as well, decentralization and open source, and the strong correlation between sustainability and transparency, which I would fully agree with, and maybe pass that also on for Ina and Lauren to share their thoughts on, in particular also when it comes to how can we do a better job of creating shared infrastructures, for instance, also for data gathering, for monitoring, and making sure that we're implementing in the right ways. Lauren, I see you nodding. Is this something that you're also working on, Redress?
No, it actually just reminded me of something that I learned from, I'm so sorry, I can't remember the name of the company, but I was speaking on a panel with someone who had a startup that was working on systems for knowledge sharing across brands. And he brought up the point that you can actually be a more sustainable brand, and you can communicate that one of your points of sustainability is knowledge sharing. And I thought that was a really interesting concept that I hadn't really thought of before, that you can be more sustainable by sharing your learnings with other brands. It can be your contribution.
Yeah, I come from this open source tech world, so that's something we've sort of internalized, but I'm also always excited to see when this sort of mindset is transported also to other non-tech industries. Let's say, Ina, how are you addressing this correlation between transparency and sustainability, and also maybe accountability and sustainability in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think these are so important points. Also, like the one on like openness and knowledge sharing, like between brands. Like I think we observe also on like platforms like Fashion for Good, these like pre-competitive spaces that are so important to exchange. And we've set up, I think, something similar for the closed loop pilot that was presented, where like we have like 5 different brands like joining this pilot and like going through a full cycle from like circular design, producing products for reuse and recycling, then equipping them with the circularity, and also like building up the infrastructures for take back with the partners of Verwertung. And I think that's so exciting. There are like large brands and smaller brands together, like Armedangels and like lots of other smaller brands that are really exchanging on learnings and also understanding how are the places also different for the different company sizes, and like how can we really learn from each other and also provide resources to each other. So that's like really happening and very exciting. And at the same time, I also think that the point on open source is the only way how we can like move this forward fast enough. So that's also like definitely a take that we have, and we are also thinking a lot on how can we really structure data and standardize data in a way that is more shareable and accessible for multi-different stakeholders. So in 2019, we published already our Circularity ID open data standard that kind of proposes the type of data, product data, and also material data that a product should have ingrained in the garment, and like that should be accessible throughout the whole life cycle, and being accessible by different stakeholders with different interfaces. And I think we're so happy to see also this being aligned now in different initiatives. So like we ourselves take part a lot in like ISO norm developments, as well as like national programs for that are like contributing to the product passport development. So I think there's a lot going on different initiatives that are working towards this, and I think it's the only way of really interconnecting platforms. And for that, we really believe in like collaborative impact and really building on each other's initiatives. So like to make an example, like of course we're gathering data, but there are so many transparency in the supply chain solutions that are greatly interconnected in the value chain already. So like why not interconnecting our system with theirs, and like evaluating the data, also using it for circularity and connecting it with our services, or platforms that are more for finding manufacturers. Like we interconnected, for example, with Sketch as a platform. So we see like, okay, where are the gaps? What are the platforms that are complementary to us, and like how can we really have a greater offering for brands together, so they have like one holistic solution. And so I think that's definitely something that we're super eager about, and this collaborative impact approach is also, I think, the only way forward.
Great, thank you. That was a bit of foreshadowing in a really cool way, because we are on our 3rd day of the summit going to focus on impact monitoring and the kind of frameworks that we need for that as well. So thanks for sharing that from your work. I'd also like to ask Daniel, like, how do you work with transparency and to think about openness in terms of also technological infrastructure, so data and other factors in your work? Is that something that you see also as a strong connection between sustainability and this type of openness we've been speaking of?
Totally. So it's a few years already. Actually, first time I've been with you guys at NoNit, speaking about kind of the same topic, and also with a colleague of Lauren from Redress. I said this, like, we're an open factory, like everyone can come see what we do, how we do it, copy our models. We're happy that people do it, so that it would mean more industries would be doing real good. Then regarding to the collaborative impact, as I said, we're totally open for everyone since a long time already, and I totally agree and vouch for the topics and the ideas said before. Then regarding technologies, we work with a few technologies already, be the measurement technologies like the IG index, or the platforms for Business Ambition 1.5, also in the Global Compact of the United Nations. Those are the main monitoring solutions we use. And we are also developing now at We Sustain. So this transparency that we see now in the industry is still very, very closed. And what you see and what is communicated to the brands might not always be the truth, unfortunately. So at We Sustain, we decided, due to our background in the industry, to develop a truth LCA, or to reveal the truthfulness behind the fact, behind every piece that we build and that our clients build. We're trying now to develop, to pass it from a traditional LCA to a total technological open source platform that that anyone can use and put their data and see the real impact of their pieces. I'm sorry,
That
I don't
sounds
know.
really
I
exciting.
don't. My phone is cutting a lot, so I'm
No,
not
we
sure.
heard you perfectly, Daniel. Thank you. You were very clear.
A lot of technical problems today. Sorry.
That's great, though, that you still managed. And maybe we can pop some of the links of some of the initiatives that you talked about, if there's anything that people can read up online, in the chat later. I just had a look. I didn't find any questions. This is a last shout out for questions from the audience, but I did find some comments and suggestions that they would like to dig deeper on the topics that we've been debating here. Amber, I'd like to come back to you. You already mentioned NFTs earlier, and that's something I definitely wanted to ask you, this sort of question of how the fashion industry is perhaps also having an impact or sort of signaling towards other industries. I felt like there's a bit of a surprise, maybe to many, that the art world would have become innovative in an unexpected way and sort of experience this game changer with NFTs. Do you see that as a turning point in the art world, and where do you see its effects on the fashion world as well?
Yeah, totally. It's a massive shift in the way that we interact with digital goods, so in digital products. So this can be from digital art to digital products itself, to anything related to digital files. Because the thing is, normally we know digital as being something that you can endlessly copy. You know, a JPEG file, you can copy it a million times, and it didn't really create value, doesn't have value. But with blockchain, what you're able to do is you're able to create value for that single JPEG file, which is linked to a single code, which makes it scarce and valuable. But you're able to create and decide on the scarcity for however you like that. And I think it's just such a massive shift to see suddenly artists, digital artists that have like never been able to break through, suddenly having the opportunity to create their own life by being able to share their art and being able to buy their art and creating economies for that. And this is a shift, a massive shift that's happening in society right now, in which we are decentralizing systems, economies, anything. Because right now, almost everything is functioning as a centralized system. Our government and anything related to that, financial systems, they're functioning centralized. But what if those could be decentralized and actually everybody could decide on the future of certain things? And I think this for us has been like a massive change within every industry. It could disrupt every industry. This technology can disrupt, like, just disruptive art. But imagine you actually having an NFT or garments, you know, being able to follow the life cycle of garments, for instance, or being able to use blockchain technology to make sure your supply chain is completely sustainable, because you can lock in all of the sort of the codes into this blockchain. And I think, like, another thing, you know, what I see happening is the fact that digital fashion can become extremely valuable, because this is something that you can create value for and scarcity for and new experiences for. Also because fashion has now always been a physical product. It is kind of a thing that you own, that you wear. But it is just a piece of cloth, basically. And once you buy it, the brand, you know, doesn't profit anymore off if you will sell it in the secondhand market. But with blockchain, what it allows you to do is you can program that into the smart contract, that the designer that creates the product will always still earn money from when the garments get sold again, so that there is sort of a fairer system and an economic model that will actually benefit everyone. And this is to us massively exciting, because it's suddenly creating these microeconomies for everybody to profit off. So artists can finally make a living, fashion designers could start a fashion brand without ever needing to have millions of euros to start their own fashion label. They could start selling those digital items now. So I think that's what makes us so excited about this industry. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely, Amber. Thanks so much for explaining that and for sharing that excitement with us. I think we're going to leave it on that hopeful outlook, both in terms of how the circularity uptake in the fashion industry is going on a whole, but also the new possibilities and perspectives that these technologies are opening up for the industry. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today, Amber, Ina, Lauren, and Daniel. It was a pleasure to discuss this topic with you.